And we're live. Good evening, everyone. Thursday, one day to go to the weekend. God, can't wait. Apart from the weather, I suppose. That's the next thing, isn't it? We're going to have to survive in the UK here. I've never known a summer like it. Great guest tonight. I met him for the first time last night. We had a quick resume, sort of run through the show. It's Phil Silverman from Yorkshire, Leeds in Yorkshire. Welcome to my show, Phil.
Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well indeed. Thank you. Very well. Found Phil basically through Facebook and a few other websites, and I thought this guy's got some lovely, lovely photography which we can share together on the show tonight. So I'm really looking forward to doing the screen share later on, where we can show his beautiful landscape work. But one of the main aspects of this show is going to be talking about stock photography, because Phil puts quite a bit of work through a stock library. So that's really going to be interesting, because it's the first time we touched on that as a subject matter. But as always, to start the show off, Phil, what's your first recollection of a camera?
My first recollection is Yashica, and I've actually got it with me. It's the very one. It's my dad's old one, bought brand new in 1966, and it still looks like new.
Nice.
It's the thing I remember most about his photography. He always had it with him. He was never a pro, always a hobbyist.
Yeah.
But that's the camera that he's always had with him, along with the trusty. Can you see it?
Yeah, just about the old light meter there.
Yeah, Western Master 5.
Master 5. Does that still work, the Western?
It certainly does. Yeah, nothing to go wrong with it. Selenium cell.
Well, there you go.
And I still use it on the very odd occasion.
Oh, lovely. Fantastic. No, that's good to hear, actually. But the Yashica, you were telling me last night, you think there's a little spring that's sprung and need a little bit of a repair job.
Yeah, I need to get it fixed.
Yeah, you must do that. We were talking last night. You must find someone just to make that little repair, because it'd be fantastic to use it. So that's a 6x6 format camera, medium format camera?
Yes, it is twin lens reflex.
Yeah.
And the results that he got out of it were amazing. Absolutely.
And what sort of film did he use in that camera in those days?
He was using black and white print, and then he went over to Velvia.
Oh, right.
And the slides were fantastic. 2 1/4 square slides, and they almost came to life in your hands.
Amazing.
The colours really, really popped.
Yeah, the Fuji was really well known for the Velvet, especially for the landscape photographers. I remember.
Oh yeah.
Always, if you were landscape photography, use Fuji, and if you were portrait or I don't know, sports photography, probably use Ektachrome, or obviously for portraiture it'd be the Kodachrome.
Yeah, that's right.
It was great for the flesh tones, wasn't it? Well, that's really great, and it's great that you still got the camera. I think that's absolutely superb. When you told me that last night, I thought, well, that's brilliant. That's a great opener to the show. It was superb. But what was the first camera that you bought yourself?
And the first camera that I bought myself, and I've got it here with me.
Oh, great! I'm glad you got all these cameras with you. It's great.
It's another Yashica. It's an FX3.
Right.
I think we're a Yashica family, actually.
Yeah, fine. It's interesting, actually. When was that then, Phil? What sort of year was that?
That was 1987.
1987. Okay.
And I bought it second-hand.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that, actually, because I was talking to my guest last week, Neil Buck and Grant, and we were talking about film cameras, and I think I got the impression Neil and I were probably about the same sort of age. Well, I hope we are anyway. And my first camera that I bought was a Zenit E, which was in around about 1977, 76, 77. Then I followed that on with the Nikon EM. But the thing which I was saying to Neil last time was, I don't remember seeing any Canons in the shop. I could see Nikon, and I remember Praktica were quite a lot, and there was a lot of Pentax. Now, Yashica was another name which I don't remember using. Obviously, I'm aware of Yashica's been around for a long time. But it was quite interesting in those days. You seem to get a totally different sort of set of cameras. I'm probably going to get loads of emails on the back of this now saying, yeah, of course they were around and all that business. But certainly for my camera shop, it was Pentax, Praktica, and a little bit of Nikon, but full shelves of Zenits, which everyone was obviously selling off cheap.
House bricks they were, weren't they?
Total bricks. You know, you could drop it and still play football with it and use it afterwards. You know, it's amazing. So Yashica. Now, what did you buy with Yashica when you bought it? Was it just a straight 50mm lens, or did you buy some other gear?
Yes, it was a 50mm that came with it, and it cost me for both the body and lens 75 quid.
Yeah.
And later on, about a year down the line, I bought a Takina 2470.
Right. Okay.
And that lasted years and years and years.
And what sort of film did you like using in the camera then?
Well, then that was just a precursor to me starting night school.
Right.
I learned how to process and print my own black and white, so I went on to Ilford FP4 and HP5, if you can recall those.
Yeah, I love lovely film.
And I had and then I set up my own darkroom in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic. I used to love doing that. But then the chemicals made me feel ill.
Well, interesting you say that, actually, because that's exactly what happened with me. I used to do Chrome prints from the 64 or the I even dabbled with 25 Kodachrome at one stage for some ridiculous reason, because the light was never good enough for it, and obviously the Ektachromes, because I preferred the Kodak film. And I'd be using the Chrome chemicals. I think that made me unwell as well. Probably in a very confined space with no sort of air conditioning going on didn't really help matters much.
Air conditioning, that's a luxury. No, we never had that.
I was going to say window open, but then I thought couldn't do that if you're in the dark room. But you know what I mean.
Your fumes coming off.
Some fans, exactly. Some sort of fan going on. How did you actually? I know your father, by the sound of things from our conversation, it's a lovely story that your father was so much involved with photography. Is that how you got into photography yourself? Because your father was such a keen hobbyist.
Yes, it is, and that's the reason why I bought the Yashica, because I remembered he had the Yashica mats.
Yeah,
so I wasn't into photography then, and it's the only name that I recognised.
Yeah,
there were probably all the other brands that you could care to mention then, but that was the one I went for because he had the Yashica.
Yeah. What was your interest at school then? Obviously, photography wasn't really part of your main interest. What was your interest at school?
Usual football,
rugby, just like me. The pull of the green fields was a little bit too much for me. I did after this holiday that I took in. Well, it wasn't a holiday. It's supposed to have been a school trip down to the Monaco Grand Prix in 1976.
Oh God!
I told the story last week, so I won't. I'll tell you the story after the show, but I won't bore my viewers with it. But that's instilled my interest in photography. But I was such a keen sportsman with regards to football and rugby and cricket in the summer.
Yeah.
The thought of going in the darkroom, although it interested me, didn't really have that pull. You know what I mean? It was. It was sport all along the line for me. I just had to get out and kick a ball or pass the ball in terms of the rugby side of it.
Well, I must say that the darkroom didn't really interest me till I went to night school.
Right.
It was forced on you really, because you had to learn it.
Yeah.
All I wanted to learn was photography, you know, and the venues, the realities.
Sorry to interrupt you. So when did you go to night school? Was that straight after school, or was there a period of time from school before you went there?
It must have been about a year. So a year after I picked up the camera. So it must have been about 88-ish. And I went there with my dad as well. I mean, he'd never done any developing or printing himself either.
Oh, that's lovely.
So we learnt together. We learned, and we bought, you know, the enlarger and the chemicals and the and the drum and the trays and everything together. So we learned how to do it ourselves.
That's okay. I'm back. Sorry, I thought there might be some trouble tonight with the thunderstorms around. Are you there, Phil?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah, it's great. We just had a little freeze. I think it's wonderful when you can share something with your father. My share with my father was cricket. You know, he was a good cricketer, and he came to watch me come and play a few games. I never saw him play. He'd sort of taken a retirement out of cricket at that time.
Yeah.
But with me and my son, we had a great love of golf, which we used to go and play a lot of golf together before he went to university, and I unfortunately damaged my shoulder, which meant that I couldn't play anymore.
Yeah.
And that's when I got back into photography in a bigger way than I had done in previously. Yeah. So it's great that you can have this sharing with your father with regards to an experience, whatever hobby it is. Yeah. It's great, because those memories will stay with you forever.
Yeah,
forever.
I treasure those memories.
So what you do? So what was there a reason for you going to night school to do photography, or was it just purely and simply, I would just want to learn more about photography?
It was purely and simply, I just want to learn more.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from my dad.
Yeah.
There's a limit. There's a limit to what he can teach you, and so we both decided to go out, together, really. And it was great. It really was good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. What were you doing a day job at the time then? Or, I'm assuming you were at work during the day.
Yeah, I was an apprentice working jeweler.
Oh, fantastic. A little bit of arty work in there as well.
Yeah. So I think I've done that most of my working life.
Yeah.
So that's another artistic bent that I've got.
Yeah, that's lovely. So from that situation, you're moving on now through. You've done your night school. You moved into wedding photography. Was that something which was a natural progression, or was it just something you thought, well, I'll give it a go and see how it works out, see if I can make an extra bit of bucks for the table?
Yeah, exactly. I thought I'd give it a go, and that was about that was well into my photography journey. That was about 5, 6, maybe 7 years ago.
Okay.
And I was an assistant and second shooter to a very good friend of mine who's a wedding photographer from South Wales, and I did a couple of years second shooting with him and learning the ropes. And that was invaluable, absolutely invaluable.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Without that, I'd have been lost.
We may have just skipped over a large chunk of your move through photography. Are you now at the wedding stage? Are you shooting digitally, or are you still using film?
Yeah.
So let's go back then. When did you switch from film camera, which I'm assuming was still the Yashica?
No, actually, no. I switched over to Contax, which is obviously the same mount and the same fitting.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah.
And I was using the 139.
So you switched from Contax to a digital camera. What did you choose?
I chose the Sigma SD10.
Yes. You mentioned to me this last night, actually. Yes, of course.
That was great in its day. Had a fantastic sensor, and it was semi-officially 10 megapixels, but I was still obviously I was shooting stock. I was shooting stock on film. So when I moved over to digital, I had to make sure that it had enough resolution, whichever camera I chose, in order to be accepted. And there was a bit of umming and ahhing from their side until I got the files. And I went to the Focus on Imaging show one year, and I saw some absolutely magical prints from it, and they were massive. And I thought, well, that's good enough. So I bought an SD10 with an 1855, the Sigma 1020, and the 55-200, which should cover all eventualities.
Exactly right. Is this the one with the? Is it? I don't know how to pronounce the sensor. Is it called Fovean sensor?
Yeah, that was the Fovean sensor.
Yeah. I remember just a short few, about a few months ago, they brought out another camera, and it was being shown by the guys out in Canada. I've forgotten the name of the camera store, and they were showing, and it took an absolute age to transfer from the files from the card into the computer, and then an absolute age to open up the file.
Yeah.
And this is the downside of the Fovean sensor, isn't it?
Yeah, it didn't realize its potential, as far as I'm concerned. They could have made it a lot better in a lot shorter time. They haven't kept up with the big boys, or or even the smaller boys.
Or even the smaller boys now, as we'll get onto that subject later. Yeah, you're quite right, because this is the one thing which they obviously hit upon something which I've read rave reviews about the quality of prints, like you just mentioned there, and especially on the mono side of things, people would say, fantastic, but it is the slowness of the compatibility of downloading and then editing the image. I don't know any more than that. I don't know whether it's changed, but it's an interesting concept, because the Foveon sensor is totally different from the Fuji sensor, with the bias towards the green, and obviously the other sensors which the other manufacturers are using.
Yeah, I think it's the bias.
So from the SD, from that camera, which did you move on to?
Well, from then I bought the Nikon D300, and that was such a step forward. It was like another league. Everything about it was fantastic. And there's only one reason I had to give that up eventually, and that was when I started doing weddings, and I realized that full frame was the way to go.
Yeah.
But I did a lot of stock work with the D300.
Let's talk briefly about stock photography, because we'll go to the screen share, because it's a nice little lead in. How did you get started in stock photography?
That's a good question. I was trying to figure out ways to make money through photography without actually having to deal with members of the public. And a passive income stream seemed really good, and it's the perfect way to do it. And at that time, I was a member of the BFP.
Yes.
The Bureau of Freelance Photographers.
Yes, yeah.
That was one of their major pushing points. They always like you to do that kind of thing, contact magazines and contact hotels, and through the newsletters that they push out. I contacted I had a couple of burnt fingers along the way, because not all stock agencies are what they seem to be. No. So you've got to be really careful, and if anyone's thinking of doing it, I recommend that they search out whichever agency they want to do it through BAPLA, which is the British Association of Photo Libraries and Agencies, and they've got a website.
Yeah. We'll send me that web address, actually, Phil, from a blog afterwards, because that's a really good point you make, because I've heard some disastrous stories where people thought they were going to get some good money off some prints and have ended up getting 2 parts of 10 on the payment.
Well, it's not just that. I've been ripped off before. People
really?
have taken your shots and just disappeared with them.
Oh no.
That was shooting slides. So I mean, they've gone forever.
Exactly right. Gone forever. And of course, I remember that BFP. I do remember, in actual fact, because I think I started the course in the BFP once, and I remember them saying that if you were going to start sending stock photographs, make a copy. But of course, the stock guys want the original, don't they? So you're left with a copy, which is the downside. We'll talk more about stock photography afterwards, because I think it's a really interesting subject matter. As I said, we haven't touched on that before on this show. So now at the stage you've got the D300, which was a fantastic camera. I remember I was fortunate to go along to a Nikon presentation when that little one first came on board, and they demonstrated that alongside the D3. What was the camera you moved in for full frame after the 300 then?
D700, and I shot a few weddings with that combination, D700 and D300.
Yeah.
It was
did you have any problem with that? Obviously, there's a file size problem.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a problem as such, but did you have any issue with print size with regards to the 1.5 crop with the full frame?
No, not at all. It just fitted in really smoothly. The only thing that made me change to another D700, so I had 2 of them, was the fact that it was really poor in very low light, high ISOs. The D300. And I couldn't push those high ISOs. So having one D700, I knew how fantastic it was, so I thought I've got to buy another one.
Yeah.
And I shot.
You didn't get involved with the D600 then, and the 610 that came out, and
no. Eventually, I was shooting with my wife Helen, and eventually I gave her one D700, and I had bought a D800 as well.
Right. Yeah. So you're like me, basically, by the sound of things, got well into the Nikon gear.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the next stage of camera gear after we've done the screen share. So I'm just going to go to screen share, Phil. You should be seeing now your website.
Yeah.
So, and am I right in assuming that all these photographs on here are basically stock photographs, or available in the in
90%
stock somewhere?
Yes.
So about 90%, did you say?
Yeah, something like that. 99. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It's as many as they'll accept, really.
The what? Sorry.
It's as many as the library will accept.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're really pushing the arty-farty boundaries, because they don't want that, really.
These are questions which I want to ask you afterwards, because I'm interested to know where in actual fact you scale your work as regards to what direction you go into, on the basis of you. And let's face it, your reason for putting your work into a stock library is to sell the print.
Yes.
You're not putting them in there basically for them to say, oh, that's a fantastic photograph. There's no point of it sitting in the library not selling.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm want to come back to that if we can, and I'm just going to click on. We were talking just before the show, weren't we, about the Yorkshire Dales, and I must try and get up there. And although landscape photography is not 100% my thing, it's something I do enjoy doing. So I'm going to enjoy looking at these images you've got here of the Yorkshire Dales. Just talk through. I'm just going to scroll through as you go, Phil. If you could just sort of just give us an idea of where you were. Camera you were using, that sort of thing. We'll start with the one on the top here with the cows.
Well, both of those were shot last weekend using the XT1 with the 18135, and no filtration. It was as there were. I was coming along the road in Wensleydale, coming home actually, and as you see, the lighting conditions were absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And there was a part where I couldn't stop, and I was kicking myself, and I'm thinking, quick, put your foot down, get to the next point where you can stop. And I managed to stop where the cows were, and the light was coming through the mist, the sunlight was coming through the mist, and that was exactly how it was. It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Now, with this camera, the XT1, again, which I want to talk more at length with you, because as everyone knows, I'm a Fuji user as well.
Yeah.
Is this RAW or JPEG file initially?
Always RAW.
Always RAW.
Yeah. Always RAW.
And that's another point which I want to ask you. When you actually forward your images on to the stock library, do you forward them on as the RAW file or as a JPEG file?
It's JPEG. You can work on them within reason. But obviously, putting things in, is a no-no.
Yeah, exactly right. They've got to be a natural shot, haven't they?
Yeah, yeah.
So these first two images we see here were literally the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was last week.
Trying to find a place. I love these two here with beautiful.
That one was
skyline at the back.
That was an HDR bracket. It was a 5 exposure with the D700.
Okay.
And it was at Linton, in Wharfdale, I think.
Yeah.
And that composition there, without that rock with the moss and the reflection, it wouldn't have been anything.
No, exactly right.
That just made it.
You just put your line across that and cut that rock out. You've got no bleeding at all.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the lovely shot there of the telephone box in the Dales.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Classic shot. But you see, this is what we're talking about. Classic shot for stock photography.
Yeah. That
print, if it hasn't done, will sell for you.
That's it. And that's why you've got to keep thinking all the time. Well, that's why I think all the time. Stock, stock, stock. What's going to make a good shot? What says the Yorkshire Dales? You know, that kind of thing when I'm there.
Could you say, has that image that I'm circling here, has this image sold?
I think it's sold once.
Okay.
Sold once.
Once is better than none at all.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, if they're up there, there's always a chance of them selling.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Nice shot of the cornfields with the.
And that one, would you believe, is an SD10 shot?
The one with the telephone box?
No, the next one down.
The next one down with the cornfields. Well, blood. There you go. See.
And funnily enough, mentioning the SD10, it's a funny thing about perceived resolution. You think, oh, 10 megapixels, that's nothing. But downstairs, I've got a 40 by 30 inch canvas from an SD10 file, and it looks fantastic. So when people say, oh, you can't print that big with such a small resolution, don't take any notice of them.
Well, I've heard the likes of Alex Lambrecht and Damien Lovegrove and Kevin Mullins with their Fujis and talking about prints that have been made up to around about 6 foot by 4 foot and in excess of those sizes. And they are extremely happy with the results. So if the photographer at that level is happy with the results, then it just proves to me that, okay, the Fuji's got a 1.5 crop. But it just goes to show you that really the argument for larger files from a larger sensor, I think those days are gone now, quite honest with you. Yeah, I can understand why people use full frame. I'm not going to knock those guys, but they obviously prefer to use that. And I think I suppose it gives a different view of the image as well, doesn't it, with a full frame sensor as against a 1.5 crop?
Yeah, it does. I actually, I'm not just saying this because I've gone for a crop, but I actually prefer the crop sensor.
Yeah.
There's just something about it, and especially with the Fuji, I don't know what they've done, but it's fantastic.
I've got my ideas on that. I'll mention that later on with regards to the I think it's all down to the style of way they've actually made, well, they have the sensor made. And with that bias towards the green pixel in the file. These are lovely shots. You have a beautiful shot here. Look at this one here. I wish I could make that one bigger, but I can't. Beautiful misty shot here.
Yeah, that's Swaledale, and I think that was the D300.
Okay.
That's one of the most famous shots of the Yorkshire Dales, of looking straight down Swaledale with all the barns and the walls coming down.
Yeah.
But you don't usually see it like that. You just see it on a nice sunny day. But yes. I was going further up the valley, and that was on the way back, and I stumbled upon that. Like a lot of my shots, I just stumbled upon that.
Yeah, well, there you go. I've got to be in the right place at the right time, and you have that one.
Set up quick and take it.
What lens was on the camera for that one? Can you remember?
Yes, I think it was the 55 200. I think I was compressing the perspective on purpose.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And that's why I like the longer lens for landscapes as well.
Yeah,
not just wide angles.
So scroll down a few more of these.
That one there,
images of the Yorkshire Dales. I love this. Again, it's a lovely photograph.
That's another HDR.
Yeah. Yes, I can see the.
When I was doing it, I don't do a lot of them nowadays, but and I didn't do a lot of them then. But when I was doing them, I like to make them realistic, not the cartoony like that.
I think in actual fact that's what spoilt it for a lot of the HDR photographer followers, and when it first came out, everyone pushed it right to the barriers and the front of the elements, and they became very, very stark and very, very sharp and almost sketch-like, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I think now, of course, we've got the parameters to work with Lightroom that works so well. There's probably no need to bracket now anymore.
No.
But those that do want to do the HDR, let them do it a little bit more on the subtle side now, rather than creating the harsh results. Sometimes it works when you want a nice abstract view of something, then you create. But generally, you can see from this lovely image here that if you had gone OTT on the sliders and really gone for the highs and the lows of the HDR files, you would have had a not such a pleasant image to look at.
Yeah.
Let's just look at a couple more here. Lovely one of the fields, the haystacks there. Great shot with slow motion on the water there. Did you have an ND filter on that, or was that just a slow shutter?
That was I closed it down to f/22 to get not only the full depth, but slow the shutter down a lot.
Yeah, lovely.
I think that was a D300 as well.
Yeah. Great shots there for the landscapes. Let's come back to that then and go back to the portfolio, Phil, and then let's choose another one. I particularly like. Hold on, I was gonna. Yeah, let's look at cities and urban, because this is something which we discussed before, and well, I'm blowed. Is that Liverpool?
No, that's not. When I've got. As I said to you before, one of my best friends he lives down in South Wales, and he's a wedding photographer, and we regularly go out, and we went into Cardiff.
Oh, right, okay.
That was at the top of the wheel. I'm not sure if they still have it there, but
yeah,
the D800 with I think it was the 1424, and I got some really good shots.
Yeah, exactly. I was getting confused there. I was looking at that red tower there, and I immediately thought of Liverpool. It's nothing like it. So basically, when you're doing this type of work, this is obviously still the potential to use as stock photography.
Yes, definitely. Brochures, websites, that kind of thing. Yeah, definitely. That one's Leeds.
Okay. And then they're beautiful canals there. Leeds again. The Leeds. That's the town hall, isn't it?
Yes, that is the town hall when the Tour de France was going to come through.
That's right. Yeah.
Ideal stock shot as well.
Exactly. This is interesting to see this type of work, because I think probably someone was like, "Oh, I won't take it because it's got the banners up there.
Yeah.
I'll do something different." But being stock, it's an ideal opportunity to use, isn't it?
And it's not just that. It's it'll never happen again. So it's
exactly right.
So
it's a record of the. This is great. I love this shot. This is super. I like that.
Oh, thank you.
Super.
That's a crane that they're actually using to build the huge south entrance to the Leeds station. That's going to carry the HS2 when it actually gets built.
Right. Yeah, you got some good
all Liverpool shots.
Yeah, exactly right. And this one here is intriguing. I like that. I think that's just great. That a lot of people would not take that.
No, well, that once again, I had stock in mind for that, because we were on holiday in Spain, and that they were building a new development. So of course, my mind automatically goes to stock, and I'm thinking, great editorial shot that.
Yes.
And I took it.
Yeah.
Obviously, the one that got sent to the library was the colour version.
Yeah.
They don't tend to like black and whites. Another York shot that was.
Yeah.
Once again, I was thinking stock.
Yes.
Tourist board, that kind of thing.
Let's have just a quick look at the macro, just for a couple of images. Do you find you can get this into your stock library as well, macro photography?
I've only just started, and they've accepted a few. Would you believe they're both with the Fuji,
right.
with in the macro setting, with the 18135 on.
Yes.
And fantastic results. and the same with that.
I did a review on the 18-135, a cracking lens, but for my own personal usage, it wasn't suitable. But I did do some close-up work, handheld, and I was quite impressed with the way the lens worked.
Yeah.
I didn't use the XT1. I was using it with my XE1.
Right.
I didn't have any problem with the focusing. Oh, it was this great shot here with the B. Well done.
Thank you. That was D800.
Yeah. God, cracking shot on the berries there.
Thank you. That's more D800 stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've only recently, within the last 3 months, changed over to Fuji. There's relatively few shots on there, but they're increasing all the time.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that next, because I know we talked before you switched to Fuji, and that'd be interesting to know why you switched to Fuji. But let's go back to the stock photography. So you take the photograph in RAW, and then you obviously do your editing, what is required of editing for the shot. And we've got to remember what you said before. You can't really muck about with the image, as I would say, too much. You've got to try and keep it as natural as possible.
Ish. You've got a certain leeway. If you do submit something like an HDR, you might as well tell them it's an HDR.
Yeah.
They'll accept it. They have accepted them before. But of course, once again, it's got to be believable.
Yes, exactly. It's not too outlandish, so to speak. So why did we switch to Fuji?
Well, retiring from weddings, I wanted to go lightweight.
Yeah.
And the Nikon, as you know, the Nikon 7200, 2470, 1424, they weigh a ton.
Yes.
Now, putting everything in a backpack, taking it up to where I was going, and then you find out that you don't want to take it out. You can't be bothered.
Yes.
And although you've looked it all that way, you should do. But it's the old adage, the old photography adage: the more you have with you, the less you are inclined to use it.
Yeah.
So I had my mind set up. I was going mirrorless because of lightweight. So it was a toss-up between the Olympus and the Fuji. And the reason why I discounted the others was because, for me, I wanted a manufacturer that had a good background in photography. And I'm sorry, but Sony, Panasonic, whoever, Samsung, the more electronics firms than photography companies.
Very good point.
So I wanted it was either the Fuji or the Olympus.
Yeah.
Reading loads of reviews on both. I didn't actually handle them, which is quite unusual for me. I didn't go to a shop and try them out.
Really?
But I just had this gut feeling that the Fuji was for me. And my dad bought the Olympus. I think it was the was it MP5? Was it?
I don't know. They confused me with their numbers, because I think the first one they brought out was an EM5, was the DSLR version.
Right.
They had some pen cameras which came out before, which was without the viewfinder.
Well,
I got lost with their. Let me see if I can just quickly find out which they did, because they did muck about with their numbers. It seems strange that they started. I'm pretty certain their first camera was an EM5.
Right.
If I could find it, but you carry on, and I'll try and see if I can find it.
Okay. He bought the. I think it was the top of the range at the time.
Yeah.
I looked at it, and there was something about it that I just didn't get on with. So I went for Fuji, and I've never looked back. Absolutely fine. It's just like going back to one of these.
Yeah, it's very, very true actually what you say, because I can't find the thing, so I won't waste my time. I like you, had got fed up with the amount of gear that I was carrying around, and I called it my just-in-case bag.
Yes.
And that's exactly what it was. The gear that I was carrying was just in case I need it, and I never used it.
Yeah.
And it was Zach Arias and Dave Hobby that started talking about the X100 and the infamous a video with Zach in Istanbul saying the DSLR is dead, and, which okay, believe what you want, but I thought this guy may have a point here. So I started to look seriously into the Fuji.
Yeah.
And I was up in Birmingham visiting my daughter, who was at university there, and I went into a brand new shop, reopened Jessup shop in Birmingham there, and I went straight to the Fuji part of the stand, the counters, and I picked up the XE1. Guy came along and said, "Can I help you?" So I said, "Yeah, tell me about this camera." I said, "I've read a lot about it, and he was so detailed, so knowledgeable about the camera, which was a joy in itself. But then I turned around to him and I said, "Do you know one thing which slightly annoys me about camera firms? Every time you pick up a camera in a shop, you see everyone do the same thing. They take a shot and they look at the back of the screen."
Yeah.
Chimping, as we call it. And I said, to me, I do a lot of printing, and I know the back screen, as everyone else in photography knows, it's got over nearly 250,000 pixels in the back of these things, and more in some cameras. So we know the picture's going to be bright. We know it's going to be clear. And to a degree, we know it's going to be sharp. Mm-hmm. So I said to this guy, I said, "Now, what do the prints look like?" Thinking that he wasn't going to have an answer for me. He says, "Well, there's a book." I said, "You're joking." And there was a Fuji book with images taken using the X Pro one and the X100S at the time.
Yeah.
And I just looked through these images and I said, but they were all A4 images. The book was a landscape shaped book, and that sold it to me. That the camera worked perfectly. Everything that I've got the XE1 body here, everything was in to hand straight away. I had an aperture ring, I had a shutter ring, I even had a thread for my cable release, and I had the EV control as well, and it felt right. And I think this is a very, very important point, which a lot of photographers forget. They just immediately think, well, I've got to have this camera because my mate's got it and he's got it and that professional's got it. They don't try it out. And so I sold all my Nikon gear. Every little bit on the digital side went. I've still got a couple of film cameras left. I invested in the Fuji. And really, I'm like you. I'm totally amazed by the quality of the image, which I'm damn certain is something to do with the way they've created this sensor, which is obviously made for them. It is biased towards the greens, which I think is why landscape photographers enjoy it so much.
Yeah.
But the actual images that come out, I don't really agree with me, Phil, are so film-like.
It's got something special, and I'm comparing it to a D800.
Right.
When I first got the files on the computer, I was a bit in trepidation, really. I knew it was going to be good enough for the library because they accepted D300 shots, and the XT1's got a better resolution than that, so I had no worries on that score. But I'm not. It's going to sound like I'm trying to justify the expense that I've spent going with Fuji, but I'm not. They are at least on par with D800 files.
I've heard this said before.
Helen, my wife, when she looks at one on the computer, she says, "Is that with the Fuji?" I said, "Yeah." She says, "That's fantastic." And you can compare them with the D800 file, and there's just something about them. I don't know what it is.
Well, few guests back, Karen Hutton, big Canon user. She unfortunately had a couple of accidents while out with a huge rucksack and decided to switch. She decided she wanted to go mirrorless. First option she moved to was the Sony because a number of friends were using Sony.
Yeah.
She didn't really get on with the way the menu was set up and the size of the lenses. She didn't feel that it was the right direction for her. The next step was Fuji, and she said my jaw dropped off my face. I could not believe the quality of image that I was getting. You're not the first person to say they're comparable with D800 images. I've heard it said before, and I've read it many times. No doubt I'm going to get loads of emails on the back of that. You're talking a load of rubbish, Paul, but that's the way it is. Everyone I know that uses a Fuji has been very, very pleased with the results. And there's a number of top quality professionals now using them, not only for model work, fashion work, lifestyle work, as I would call it, but obviously as well, Kevin Mullins and others that I name I can't remember at the moment. They use them for wedding photography. And they're going round with I know this is the XE1, but they're just going around with the X100S and taking images, or the X100T, and the clients are just over the moon with them. Over the moon. What's your setup then with the Fuji now then, Phil? You've got the XT1.
Yeah, XT1.
Lenses have you got with that?
18135 and the 1024. And I'm waiting with very much impatience for the 100-400 to come out.
Yeah, the 100-400 has been put back, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. But as I said on some forums, I'd rather them put it back and get it right.
Exactly right.
Than release a dog.
Exactly right.
And Fuji don't do that. They don't.
No, they don't. And I think this is where we could get into a little of a political issue here with guys when we talk about the big two. They have been known to release some dogs. We mentioned earlier on that the release of the D600 by Nikon caused an absolute furore of argument and discussion on the site, much to everyone's annoyance that Nikon really didn't seem to want to do anything about it until they were basically forced into it. And then, of course, they went ahead and released the 610. There's been some issues with Canon as well, where they seem to have rushed out a body and have fallen foul of it. I think there was a light issue with the XE2 when that first came out, but Fuji just turned around and said, "Bring your camera back, we'll repair it, no questions asked." And it's something which they do. You've only got to see how many times they put up the firmwares for the older cameras.
Yeah, I think the XT1 when it first released had a light leak issue.
Yeah, I think it was the XT1 as well. It's either the XE2 or the XT1 came out with a light issue, and you're right. But this is the one thing which I think why people get enjoy about having a Fuji. They know that Fuji as a company listens to their users.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons.
With all the regular firmwares as well, which are the Kaizen operation that they've got. Yeah, there's going to be a time, as they've done now, they turn and say, right, no more improvements to the X100S. Fine. Yeah. That camera's now, nearly 3 years old. There's going to be no improvements for the XE1. Totally understand that. I suppose unless there's a firmware offer for a new lens that comes out. But generally, to improve the performance of the camera, they're going to stop doing those now. Yeah. I can't fault them at all, quite honest with you.
There's only so much you can push it. There's a limit to what the technology in that particular camera can be pushed to. So at some point, they've got to draw a line and say, enough's enough, we'll have to release another camera.
Well, very true. I think the classic was when the classic chrome filter came out with the XT1 and the 100T. I think the guys all thought, oh, great, I'm going to get a classic chrome update for my X100S, which that didn't come about. And you're right. There comes to a point where obviously they just can't do any more with what's actually in the actual body of the processor of the camera. Effectively, it's not necessarily what the camera can do; it's the processor, isn't it? Yeah.
It's got to be worth the while as well. I mean, not going to pour millions. I think their approach is fantastic. I think it's exactly right with what is needed in the camera industry, to look after your customers and not say, well, okay, yeah, we bought a new camera out every 6 months, which they obviously can and do. And it's tough luck. You've got to now upgrade. And I always remember going back to when we were talking earlier on with my son with golf. Every single 3-4 months, a manufacturer would bring out a new driver. And it was a case of, Dad, can I have the new drive? £350 a pop. And I used to say, no. I'm going to hit the ball further. I said, no. You got to stick. You got to wait. And it comes a time where you got to have a company that respects that issue and sort of says, well, yeah, okay, we'll offer the improvement in the cameras, and do the firmware. And a lot of people are commenting, what a great offer that they do. Yeah. Let's go back to the stock photography again. Phil, so we talked about the raw file, you put them in the JPEG. One point you made to me earlier on, though, which I want to come back, you said for guys to be very careful with regards to what stock photography library that they use, and it's to go through, did you say Battler? Yeah. So what's the process that you went through for that then, Phil? Well, I used at the time, as I said before, I was a member of the BFP, and I used their handbook. They had at that time a complete list of all the reputable agencies. So I chose, and they had a description of each one of what the kind of things they were looking for. So it was a case of pinning the page,
and go for it.
Go for it. And I did try a couple.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what sort of remuneration are you looking at here with regards to an image?
It depends what use it's being bought for. I've had stuff go for £200 a pop, but right. But that's rare. It's rare nowadays. It could be 10, 15, 20, 25 quid.
Yeah.
But it depends on the amount that you get, you see. If you're making quite a few sales through it, then it's worthwhile.
Yeah. Is that what you're getting from the library?
Yes, it's a 50-50 split.
50-50 split.
That's the about average. They've got all their overheads to out for, and it's their expertise getting it out to the marketplace. They've got contacts all around the world, so that's basically what that money goes towards.
Yeah, exactly. They're basically searching your customers for you, really, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And you've got the perfect thing, actually, because all you're doing is you're shooting, you're processing, you're sending. It's basically fire and forget.
Right.
And that's it. And the next thing you know, you've got some money in your bank account, and that's it.
Now, the great thing, as we mentioned earlier on, obviously when it was in the old days, film and slide, 9 times out of 10, that film part, the negative or the transparency, it had to be the original, was sent to the library. And if you haven't made the copy, it's gone. But obviously, digital age now, you send the JPEG and you've still got the RAW.
That's it.
Can you use that RAW file for further printing to send to other libraries, or to maybe print and sell privately?
It depends on the terms and conditions. It used to be a big no-no to send the same shot to more than one, but they've relaxed those rules now. It's basically fair game. You can send to as many as you like, really, nowadays, as far as I understand.
And there's nothing to stop you having a print made or printing it yourself and selling it privately?
No. But the obviously you'll have to look at the terms and conditions of any particular library that you use. But mine is no. I can do anything I want with them.
Okay. And are the files numbered in terms of 1 to 250, for argument's sake, in a library, or is it just a case of we can print and sell as many as we can of that particular print?
No,
file.
I can only speak for my own.
Yeah, sure.
But it's unlimited, which means unlimited sales. Exactly
right. And if it's a popular image for any particular reason, then of course you're going to make multiples on the top of that. Excuse me, you see my eyes keep twitching down to the side there. I keep on getting an update on a conversation, which has nothing to do with me. It just keeps popping up. It's bloody annoying. Anyway, I want to talk about your photographic inspiration. I think I know you're going to say, and I'd love it if you do, but who's been your inspiration in your photography?
Well, I wouldn't have done it, and I couldn't have done it without him. It's my dad.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have started on this very, very long journey without him.
Yes.
I don't know what I'd have done, actually, if I hadn't been involved in photography. Because it's given me so much pleasure over the years, and frustrations, of course.
Of course, we have that. Isn't it amazing how something happens in your life where it's a little bit of guidance? Why don't you try this out, son? And you go away, and you look back and you think, now if I hadn't have done that, what would I have done? And it's just a total blank, isn't it? You haven't got a clue what you would have done. For me, I wouldn't have been playing golf, because I couldn't possibly play even 9 holes now. So it really does. Well, I may in actual fact ended up doing a lot of DIY now, come to think of it. Not by my choice, I'd hasten to add. So inspiration was your dad, which is lovely, and I think that's great that you've had that experience with him. And I obviously had the experience with my dad with cricket, and my son the golf. Who's your favourite photographer, Phil?
Well, it depends on what genre. big one when I was shooting weddings was one of the best in the business, Brett Florens. He's a South African photographer, and his work is just absolutely incredible. And he's a really nice guy as well.
Yeah, that helps.
He's one of the best in the business. He's an educator. He does workshops. He does quite a few in London as well.
Right.
But his work is excellent, and if anyone hasn't heard of him or seen his work, go check it out. Brilliant stuff.
Brett Florens for the wedding photography. How about your landscape photographer?
Probably Charlie Waite.
Yeah.
And this goes back to when I was learning, because whenever you used to buy magazines, his work always used to be in there. And it's such simple compositions, but the light is fantastic. And especially you've seen his Tuscany shots. And the south of France ones with the lavender fields. Wonderful
shots on there. I always say for British landscapers, I always think of Dave Noten and Joe Cornish, who are totally outstanding photographers. But Charlie Waite, I know, I would totally agree with you, a quality landscape photographer. Would there be anybody else that you would say was? It's very hard for me because I've always said to my guests here, what is your favorite photographer, your one photographer? And of course, it's very difficult because everyone says, well, I've got so many photographers that I like their work. It's you can't really pin it down, can you?
Yeah. Someone who I don't think many people may have heard of is Jimmy McIntyre. He's from the northeast of England, and he's a travel photographer, and his work currently, as I believe, is in China, but it has been in Korea the last few months. His work, he's also an educator. His work is fantastic, and his processing is out of this world. Excellent.
McIntyre, you mentioned him to me before the show, and I've made a little mental note to see if I can get him on the show at a later stage. That would be great if I could.
That would be great.
So, I'll have a chat with him. Phil, it's been great talking to you about your build-up through your photographic love, and obviously your experiences working with wedding photography and then into stock photography. And thanks for that insight into stock photography, because for anyone who basically has been watching the show or watches the video down the line, it may be something which they want to consider doing. So it's a little bit, you've got to treat it with a little bit of trepidation by the looks of things. Make sure you're in with a good library.
If I can add just one thing, stock photography is not a short-term get-rich-quick scheme. It's a very, very long-term thing. It's a numbers game.
Right.
At the moment, I've got a couple of thousand images with my library, and you've got to keep going and going and going. It's a long-term thing. Just think of it as a pension scheme.
Yeah, and as you say, take the photograph, put it away, let the guys do the work with it, and then go out and shoot a load more. And you don't have the hassles of it.
Yeah,
so a couple of very good points there.
Fire and forget. Take them, send them, format your card, go out and do it again.
Exactly right, and look for that image, which is what stock photography wants. What you must do actually, if you don't mind, Phil, if you could send me a couple of links. The BFP, are they still in existence? The BFP, they are, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Send me the link for that, because I think it'd be very interesting for my viewers to check out on that information, so that they know what they're shooting is right for the stock library. And obviously, when you line yourself up with the library, I suppose the best thing to do is to check what is actually on that site.
Yes. Yeah, indeed so.
So you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Phil, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. It's been great, and I am going to come up to Yorkshire Dales as a definite, and I'll give you a knock on your door.
Well, yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Anyway, thanks to everyone. For those that have been watching this evening, I've had a few people watching, which is great. Thank you so much for that. We've got one more day to go for the weekend, and if you are shooting this weekend, like I always say to you, leave your camera bag at home. All the best to you. Bye for now.
Good night.